Today I don't pray, because now my faith is vengeance.
The text message wasn't meant for me, but there it was, glowing on my wife's phone screen like a neon sign advertising my own humiliation. Can't wait to see you sweat again tonight, Jay. I'm Eugene Braun, 51 years old, and I've been fixing broken things my whole life. Cars, trucks, marriages, you name it. But standing in my garage at 11:30 on a Tuesday night, grease under my fingernails and my wife Bernice's phone buzzing in my hand, I realized some things can't be fixed. They can only be destroyed. The phone had fallen out of her purse when she'd stumbled in from another late night at the law firm. Bernice worked as a senior paralegal downtown, made decent money, and never let me forget it. She'd been cold for months, treating our 25-year marriage like a business arrangement that had stopped being profitable. I should have put the phone back, should have minded my own business, but that winky face emoji burned into my retinas, and before I knew it, I was scrolling through message after message. Jeff, you make me feel alive again. Gene's working late tonight. Come over at 9. I've never felt this way before. You're everything he isn't. Jeff, Coach Jeff Maloney, owner of CrossFit Revolution downtown. I knew him by reputation. Former high school football star, all charm and muscle. The kind of guy who called everyone buddy and drove a lifted Jeep with vanity plates. The kind of guy my wife apparently preferred over her blue-collar husband who managed an auto parts warehouse. My hands shook as I kept reading. Hotel receipts forwarded to her email. Explicit photos I won't describe. Plans to figure out the Gene situation after the holidays. 25 years of marriage reduced to a situation. The garage felt smaller suddenly, the walls closing in. My tools hung on their pegboard like old friends. Wrenches, hammers, things that made sense in a world that had just stopped making any sense at all. Outside, Mrs. O'Hara's kitchen light was still on across the street. The old bat never slept, always watching, always knowing everyone's business before they knew it themselves. I heard footsteps on the porch. Bernice and our daughter Lila, home from college for winter break, their voices carrying in the cold December air. Mom, you deserve better than this, Lila was saying. Dad's just, I don't know, stuck. You're still young, still beautiful. You could have a real life. It's complicated, honey, the house, the finances. Screw the finances. You only get one life. Don't waste it on someone who doesn't appreciate you. I stood there in my own garage listening to my daughter encourage my wife to leave me, and something inside my chest cracked like ice on a frozen pond. Not broke, cracked. The breaking would come later. I slipped the phone back into Bernice's purse before they came inside, but the damage was done. I knew, and in a town like ours, knowing was just the first step in a dance that would end with everyone knowing. Bernice brushed past me without a word, heading upstairs. Lila paused at the garage door, looking at me with something between pity and disgust. Dad, when's the last time you took Mom somewhere nice? When's the last time you made her feel special? I work 60 hours a week to keep this family. That's not what I asked. She shook her head, her blonde hair catching the garage light. At 23, she looked just like her mother had at that age. Same sharp features, same way of making me feel small without even trying. Maybe if you put half as much effort into your marriage as you do into that stupid truck. She left the sentence hanging and went inside. I stayed in the garage until nearly 1 a.m., pretending to work on the engine, actually planning. Because if there's one thing 25 years of marriage teaches you, it's that information is power. And I had information now. The next morning, Bernice was already gone when I woke up. Coffee made, dishes washed, a note on the counter. Working late again tonight, don't wait up. B. No love, no honey, just B. Like signing a business memo. I called in sick to work, first time in 3 years, and spent the day doing research. CrossFit Revolution's website showed Jeff in all his glory. 6'2", square jaw, the kind of smile that probably made middle-aged women forget they had husbands. The gym's Yelp reviews mentioned his personal attention and hands-on coaching style. I bet. By evening, I had a plan. Not revenge, not yet, just reconnaissance. I used the Find My iPhone app to track Bernice's location. The little blue dot showed her at the Sleepy Inn Motel on Route 9, the kind of place that rented rooms by the hour and didn't ask questions. I drove my pickup to the motel, parked 3 spaces down from Bernice's Honda, and waited. The December wind cut through my jacket, but I barely felt it. Through the thin curtains of room 12, I could see shadows moving. 2 figures, my wife and her coach, I should have left then. Should have gone home, packed my bags, called a lawyer. Instead, I got out of the truck and walked to Jeff's Jeep. The vanity plate read Coach 1. Real creative. I pulled out my keys and dragged them along the driver's side door, leaving a long, deep scratch from headlight to taillight. Then I took out the notepad I kept in my pocket for work orders and wrote, "Hope you're insured, Coach. The situation." I tucked the note under his windshield wiper and drove home, adrenaline singing in my veins. It wasn't much, but it was a start. A declaration of war written in scraped paint and spite. The next morning, Mrs. O'Hara was waiting by my mailbox like a spider in her web. "Eugene, dear, I couldn't help but notice Bernice's car wasn't in the driveway last night." "She had a work thing," I said, not meeting her eyes. "Oh, I'm sure she did." Mrs. O'Hara's smile was sharp as a knife. "By the way, I saw the strangest thing at the Sleepy Inn yesterday. A car that looked just like hers, parked next to one of those fancy Jeeps, the one with the scratches down the side." She knew. Of course she knew. In a town of 8,000 people, secrets had the lifespan of mayflies. "Interesting," I said. "Isn't it just—" She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Word is, someone keyed that poor boy's vehicle. Can you imagine the nerve of some people?" I looked her straight in the eye and smiled. "Yeah, Mrs. O'Hara. The nerve." That afternoon, Jeff's Jeep was getting towed from the motel parking lot. Bernice came home early, her face flushed, her hair mussed. She didn't say a word about where she'd been, and I didn't ask. But she kept checking her phone, texting frantically. At dinner, she was distracted, picking at her food. "Everything okay at work?" I asked, all innocence. "Fine, just client issues." "Nothing you can't handle, I'm sure." She looked up sharply, searching my face for hidden meaning, but I kept my expression neutral, just a concerned husband asking about his wife's day. After she went upstairs to shower, her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. Another message from Jeff. "Someone knows. We need to be more careful." I deleted the message and put the phone back exactly where she'd left it. Let the games begin. The town's whisper network moved faster than broadband internet. By the end of the week, everyone from the grocery store clerk to my boss at the warehouse was giving me those looks. Part pity, part curiosity, all uncomfortable. The kind of looks reserved for car wrecks and men whose wives were screwing around. "Gene, you doing all right?" asked Tommy Breslin, my assistant manager, while we were inventorying brake pads. "You seem, I don't know, different." "Different how?" "Angrier, like you're waiting for someone to say the wrong thing so you can take their head off." He wasn't wrong. I'd been walking around with a constant buzz of rage just under my skin, like touching a live wire. Every fake smile from Bernice, every casual lie about working late, every time she checked her phone and smiled that secret smile, it all fed the fire. "I'm fine," I told Tommy, "just tired." But I wasn't fine, and tired didn't begin to cover it. I was a man watching his life get dismantled piece by piece while everyone pretended not to notice. The pretending got harder when Jeff started showing up around town. Suddenly, he was everywhere. The grocery store, the gas station, the coffee shop where Bernice got her morning latte. Always friendly, always calling me buddy, always asking how Bernice was doing with that crap-eating grin. "Hey there, Gene," he called out when I ran into him at Murphy's Hardware. "How's the family?" I was buying a new set of wrenches, and the weight of the tool in my hand felt significant. Jeff stood there in his CrossFit gear, all protein powder muscles and fake concern. "Family's fine," I said. "How's business?" "Can't complain, though someone's been vandalizing cars in the area. Real shame. Insurance doesn't cover everything, you know." "No," I said, meeting his eyes. "I guess it doesn't." We stared at each other for a long moment, two men who understood exactly what conversation we were really having. Then Jeff's smile got wider. "Well, you take care now, buddy. Give my regards to Bernice." I wanted to cave his skull in with the wrench. Instead, I paid for my tools and left. But the seed of a plan was growing. That night, I drove to Mick Sullivan's place. Mick owned Sullivan's boxing gym, a rundown joint above Flanagan's Tavern where I'd learned to fight 25 years ago. He'd been my trainer, my friend, and the closest thing to a father I'd had after my old man died. I found him in the gym, working the heavy bag despite being 68 and having arthritis in both hands. "Gene Braun," he said without turning around. "Heard you might be stopping by." "Yeah? From who?" "The same little birds that told me your wife's been keeping company with that musclehead from the CrossFit place." Mick stopped punching and turned to face me. His Irish accent had faded over the decades, but it always came back when he was pissed. Question is, what are you going to do about it? I don't know yet. Bees, you know exactly what you want to do. You want to beat that pretty boy into hamburger, but that's not smart, and you're a smart man. He pulled off his gloves and sat on the edge of the ring. Smart men don't swing wild. They use their heads. They hit where it hurts most. And where's that? His pride, his wallet, his reputation. Mick's grin was wolfish. Everything that matters more to him than his face. I started training again that week. Every evening after work, I'd drive to Mick's gym and beat the heck out of the heavy bag until my knuckles bled. It helped with the rage, but it didn't solve the problem of my disintegrating marriage. Bernice had stopped pretending to work late. Now she was out with friends or running errands that took 3 hours. She'd come home smelling like another man's cologne, her lips swollen from kissing, and act like nothing had changed. The breaking point came at Lila's college awards ceremony. She was graduating summa cum laude with a degree in communications and a minor in social media influence, which apparently was a real thing now. The ceremony was at the fancy hotel downtown, full of proud parents and accomplished kids. I wore my best suit, the one I'd gotten married in. Bernice wore a new dress I'd never seen before, something tight and red that made her look 10 years younger. We sat in uncomfortable silence, watching other families celebrate their children. Then Jeff walked in. He wasn't alone. He had some blonde woman on his arm, probably another client he was training. But his eyes found Bernice immediately, and she lit up like a Christmas tree. "What's he doing here?" I asked. "I don't know," Bernice said, but she was already checking her makeup and her phone camera. When the ceremony ended and we were mingling at the reception, Jeff made his move. He approached our table with his date, all smiles and casual confidence. "Bernice, what a surprise." He leaned down and kissed her cheek, letting his hand linger on her shoulder. "You look absolutely stunning." "Jeff, this is my husband, Gene," she said, her voice breathless. "Gene, this is Jeff Maloney. He owns that gym I was telling you about." "Actually, we've met," I said, standing up. "How's the Jeep running, coach?" His smile flickered. "Oh, these things happen." "Yeah, they do." Lila appeared at our table, flushed with excitement and champagne. "Mom, Dad, did you see? I got the award for Best Senior Project." "That's wonderful, sweetheart," I said, pulling her into a hug. But I was watching Jeff, who was watching Bernice, who was watching everyone except her husband. "Lila, this is Jeff," Bernice said. "I've told you about him." "Oh, the trainer." Lila's eyes lit up. "Mom says you've been helping her get back in shape." "Your mother's been working very hard," Jeff said, his hand still on Bernice's shoulder. "Very dedicated, very flexible." Something snapped inside me. "Yeah, she's real flexible," I said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "Bends over backwards for her trainer, really gets into those positions." "Gene," Bernice hissed. "What? I'm just saying you're committed to your workout routine. All those late-night sessions, all that sweating. Dad, what are you doing?" Lila looked mortified. Jeff stepped closer, his fake smile gone. "I think you've had enough to drink, buddy." "Buddy!" I laughed, and it came out harsh and bitter. "You know what's funny, Coach? I used to be the nice guy in this town. The guy who minded his own business, worked hard, kept his mouth shut. But nice guys finish last, right? Nice guys get replaced by steroid smoothies with fancy gyms and wandering hands." The reception had gone quiet around us. Other parents were staring, some pulling out phones to record the drama. "You're embarrassing yourself," Jeff said. "Am I?" Because I think the embarrassing part was when my wife started screwing her personal trainer and half the town knew before I did. "Gene!" Bernice grabbed my arm. "Stop it. You're drunk." "I'm not drunk. I'm awake. For the first time in months, I'm wide awake." I looked around the room at all the watching faces. You want to know what's really embarrassing? Being married to a woman who thinks she's trading up from a warehouse manager to a gym owner, not knowing the gym's 3 months behind on rent, and Coach here is living off protein powder and credit cards. Jeff's face went red. "You son of a witch." He shoved me, hard. I stumbled back, caught myself on a chair, and came up swinging. My fist connected with his jaw, and he went down like a sack of cement. The room erupted, women screamed, men shouted, and hotel security came running. Jeff rolled on the floor, his nose gushing, looking up at me with pure hatred. "You crazy bastard. I'll have you arrested." "For what? Self-defense?" I flexed my knuckles, feeling surprisingly good. You pushed me first, coach. Everyone saw it. The police showed up 10 minutes later. Officer Riley, a guy I'd gone to high school with, took statements from witnesses. Since Jeff had thrown the first punch, technically a shove, and I'd only hit him once, they let me go with a warning, but the damage was done. As I walked out of the hotel, I could hear the whispers starting. Phones were already buzzing with texts and social media posts. By tomorrow, the whole town would know that Gene Braun had finally lost his crap and punched his wife's boyfriend at his daughter's graduation. Bernice didn't come home that night, or the next. When she finally showed up on Thursday, it was just to pack a suitcase. "I'm staying at Aaron's for a while," she said, referring to her best friend, "until you get help." "Help for what? Your anger issues, your drinking, your paranoid delusions?" I laughed. "Paranoid delusions? Bernice, I read your text messages. I know about the motel. I know about everything." She went pale but kept packing. "I don't know what you think you know. I know Jeff's broke. I know his gym is failing. I know you've been paying for those hotel rooms with our credit cards." I held up the statements I've been studying. Paranoid delusion or just good bookkeeping? She stopped packing and looked at me with something like fear. "What do you want, Jean?" "I want my wife back, but since that's not happening, I want you to stop treating me like I'm stupid." "And then what?" I smiled, and it felt cold on my face. "Then we see what happens next." After she left, I sat in my empty house and opened my laptop. Lila had posted a TikTok video about the graduation incident, calling it, "When Toxic Masculinity Ruins Everything." The comments were brutal. "Your dad needs therapy." "Yikes, anger issues much?" "Feel bad for your mom, she deserves better." The video had 12,000 views and climbing. My daughter had turned me into a viral villain, and the internet was eating it up. I closed the laptop and went to the garage. Mrs. O'Hara's kitchen light was on across the street, and I could see her silhouette in the window, probably calling everyone she knew to spread the latest gossip. Let them talk. Let them all talk. They wanted a monster, I'd show them a monster. The first thing I did was move the money. Not all of it, that would be illegal. But I transferred my paychecks to a new account at a different bank, stopped the automatic payments on Lila's credit cards, and canceled the joint account that Bernice had been using to fund her affair. 25 years of marriage meant I knew every password, every account number, every financial hiding place she thought was secret. She found out Tuesday morning when her card got declined at Starbucks. The angry phone call came 20 minutes later. "What the heck did you do, Jean?" "I protected my assets," I said, sitting in my office at the warehouse. "Turns out when your wife is screwing around and talking about leaving, you're supposed to secure your finances. Who knew? You can't just... Actually, I can. It's my money from my job. You want access to funds? Get your own account. The mortgage will get paid by me from my account. Everything else is negotiable." There was a long pause, then, "Lila's tuition is no longer my problem. She's 23 years old and thinks I'm a toxic embarrassment. Time for her to figure out student loans like everyone else." "Jean, please, don't punish her for... For what? For posting videos calling me names? For encouraging you to leave me? For treating me like garbage at her own graduation?" I leaned back in my chair, surprised by how calm I felt. "Actions have consequences, Bernice. I thought a paralegal would understand that." She hung up on me, but I wasn't done. Not even close. That evening, I drove to CrossFit Revolution. The gym was in a converted warehouse downtown, all exposed brick and industrial lighting. Through the windows, I could see Jeff leading a class, his jaw still swollen from our encounter at the hotel. I didn't go inside. Instead, I sat in my truck and watched, learning his patterns. He stayed late most nights, usually until 9 or 10, cleaning equipment and doing paperwork. The parking lot was poorly lit, with no security cameras that I could see. Perfect. I waited until the following Tuesday, when I knew he'd be alone. Jeff's Jeep, repaired now but still bearing faint scratches, sat under a broken streetlight at the far end of the lot. I parked 3 blocks away and walked back, carrying a small toolkit and wearing dark clothes. The knife went into all 4 tires, deep enough to cause slow leaks rather than immediate flats. He'd make it a few blocks before realizing something was wrong. The dead rat I'd found in the warehouse dumpster went into his gym bag, along with a note. "You're next, coach. A friend." I was back in my truck and driving away before he even knew I'd been there. The next morning, Mrs. O'Hara was practically vibrating with excitement when I picked up my mail. Did you hear about that poor trainer boy? Someone vandalized his vehicle again, and they put something awful in his gym bag. The police think it might be connected to that unpleasantness at the hotel. Terrible, I said. Crime's really getting out of hand. Oh, it's not random crime, dear. This is personal. Someone's sending a message. She leaned closer, her eyes bright with malicious glee. Word is his gym's in financial trouble too, losing members left and right. That last part was my doing. I'd spent the weekend creating anonymous Yelp accounts and posting reviews about unprofessional conduct and inappropriate relationships with married clients. Nothing libelous, just enough to plant seeds of doubt. I'd also called the state health department with concerns about possible steroid use at the facility. By Thursday, Jeff's gym had lost 6 members and was facing a surprise inspection, but I was just getting started. Friday afternoon, I got a visit at work from Officer Riley. He looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from foot to foot in my office doorway. Gene, we need to talk. About what? Jeff Maloney's been having some problems. Vandalism, maltreatment, that kind of thing. He thinks you might be involved. Me? Why would I be involved? Come on, Gene, you punched the guy at your daughter's graduation. Everyone knows about him and Bernice. It doesn't take a detective to connect the dots. I leaned back in my chair, keeping my expression neutral. Mike, are you here officially or as a friend? Friend. For now. Then as a friend, let me ask you something. Do you have any evidence that I've done anything wrong? Witnesses, fingerprints, video footage? No, but then we don't have anything to talk about, do we? Riley sighed. Gene, I get it. I really do. If someone was messing around with my wife, I'd want to end them. But this vigilante stuff has to stop before someone gets seriously hurt. I wouldn't know anything about vigilante stuff, I said. I'm just a warehouse manager trying to keep his head above water while his marriage falls apart. After he left, I sat in my office thinking. Riley was right about one thing. I needed to be more careful. The amateur hour stuff was fun, but it was time to get serious. That weekend, I drove to Albany and paid cash for a prepaid phone and a small digital camera. I also stopped at a costume shop and bought a cheap disguise, fake mustache, baseball cap, sunglasses. Nothing elaborate, just enough to confuse any security cameras. Monday night, I followed Bernice from Erin's house to the new motel she and Jeff were using. The Riverside Inn, slightly classier than the Sleepy Inn, but still the kind of place that minded its own business. I parked across the street and waited with my camera. 20 minutes later, Jeff arrived. I got clear shots of him going into room 23, then waited another hour before taking pictures of him leaving. Bernice's car was still there. The photos weren't explicit, but they were damning. A married woman and her lover at a cheap motel, time-stamped and dated. I uploaded them to an anonymous email account and sent them to Bernice's boss at the law firm, along with a brief note. Thought you should know what your senior paralegal does during her overtime hours. I also sent copies to the wives of Jeff's biggest clients, information I'd gathered from his gym's website and social media accounts. Amazing what people posted online without thinking about the consequences. The fallout was swift and brutal. By Wednesday, Bernice had been called into her supervisor's office for a conduct review. The law firm had strict policies about employee behavior that could reflect poorly on their reputation. Sleeping with a client's husband while billing overtime hours definitely qualified. Jeff lost 3 more clients when their wives saw the photos, and his landlord received an anonymous tip about possible illegal activities at the gym. Nothing came of the investigation, but the scrutiny was damaging his business. Thursday evening, Lila showed up at my house. She looked terrible. Red eyes, messy hair, the kind of exhausted that comes from crying too much. Dad, we need to talk. About what? About Mom. About what you're doing to her. I gestured for her to sit down, but she remained standing in my living room, arms crossed defensively. What am I doing to her? Don't play dumb. The bank accounts, the photos, the maltreatment. I haven't harassed anyone. Someone's been following her, taking pictures, sending them to her work. She got suspended, Dad. They're talking about firing her. Maybe she should have thought about that before she started screwing her trainer. Lila flinched like I'd slapped her. She made a mistake. A mistake? Lila, your mother has been having an affair for months. She's been lying to me, humiliating me, planning to leave me. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. So you're going to destroy her life? I'm going to make sure there are consequences for her choices. Big difference. What about consequences for your choices? What about hitting Jeff at my graduation? What about embarrassing me in front of everyone I know? I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. She was beautiful, smart, successful. She was also entitled, naive, and completely lacking in loyalty to the man who'd worked 60-hour weeks to pay for her education. You're right, I said. I should face consequences for my choices. That's why I'm not paying your tuition anymore. Her mouth fell open. Dad, you wanted to call me toxic on social media? Fine, but toxic people don't pay for college. Figure it out yourself. You can't be serious. Dead serious. You're an adult, Lila. You made adult choices. Welcome to adult consequences. She started crying then, big, ugly sobs that might have moved me a month ago. Now they just sounded like manipulation. I hate you, she whispered. Yeah, well, join the club. Your mother's been president for months. After she left, I sat in my empty house and opened a beer. Outside, Mrs. O'Hara's kitchen light was on, and I could see her on the phone, probably spreading the latest gossip about the Braun family meltdown. Let her talk. Let them all talk. I had bigger plans in motion, and the best part was just beginning. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. We need to meet. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m., Murphy's Tavern. Come alone. E for Erin, Bernice's best friend and current roommate, the woman who'd been enabling my wife's affair, providing alibis and emotional support for her betrayal. I smiled and typed back, see you there. Time to find out what Bernice's support system really wanted. Murphy's Tavern was the kind of place where conversations died when strangers walked in and everyone knew your business before you finished your first beer. I arrived early, claimed a corner booth with a good view of the door, and waited. Erin Walsh had been Bernice's best friend since college, a sharp-faced woman with prematurely gray hair and the kind of smile that never reached her eyes. She worked as an office manager for a dental practice and had been divorced twice, both times taking her ex-husbands to the cleaners. If Bernice was getting advice on how to leave me, Erin was definitely the source. She walked in at exactly 8 o'clock, spotted me immediately, and slid into the booth across from me without preamble. Jean! Erin, thanks for coming. She ordered a vodka tonic from the waitress, then fixed me with a stare that could have frozen beer. Let's skip the pleasantries. I know what you've been doing. Yeah? What's that? Stalking Bernice, taking pictures, sabotaging Jeff's business, harassing his clients. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. It stops now. I took a sip of my beer, considering her words. Or what? Or, I go to the police with evidence. What evidence? She pulled out her phone and showed me a video. Grainy security footage from the Riverside Inn, showing a figure in a baseball cap and fake mustache taking pictures across the street. The timestamp matched the night I'd photographed Bernice and Jeff. The motel manager's a friend of mine, Erin said. He's been having trouble with voyeurs lately, so he upgraded his security system. Imagine his surprise when he caught the wronged husband playing private detective. My stomach dropped, but I kept my expression neutral. That could be anyone. Could be. But combined with the vandalism at Jeff's gym, the anonymous reviews, the maltreatment of his clients, well, it paints a pretty clear picture, doesn't it? She had me, and we both knew it. But something about her tone bothered me. Too confident, too prepared, like she'd been planning this conversation for a while. What do you want, Erin? I want you to leave them alone. Stop the maltreatment. Stop the financial games. Give Bernice a clean divorce. Do that, and this video disappears. And if I don't, then you go to jail for stalking and maltreatment. Your reputation, your job, your freedom, all gone. Is your pride really worth that much? I studied her face, looking for tells. Erin had always been a good liar, but everyone had weaknesses. Hers was her need to be the smartest person in the room. You know what's funny? I said. I've been wondering how Bernice got so confident about leaving me. She's not naturally brave, never has been. She needs someone pushing her, encouraging her, telling her she deserves better. She does deserve better. Maybe. But that's not really your call, is it? Unless... I paused, watching her reaction. Unless you have a personal stake in breaking up my marriage. Something flickered in her eyes. Just for a second, but I caught it. I don't know what you mean. Sure you do. See, I've been doing some research on you too, Erin. Amazing what you can find with a little digging. I pulled out my own phone and scrolled through my notes. 15 years ago, you worked at Braun Auto Parts, my warehouse. Remember that? Her face went pale. You were stealing, I continued. Inventory, petty cash, whatever you could get your hands on. I caught you, fired you, made sure you couldn't get another job in the industry, ruined your career, really. That was a long time ago. Not that long, and not forgotten, apparently. Tell me, Aaron, when did you decide to get revenge? When did you start working on Bernice, convincing her she was unhappy, that she deserved more excitement in her life? You're paranoid. Am I? Because I think you've been playing a very long game, getting close to my wife, becoming her confidant, slowly poisoning her against me, maybe even introducing her to Jeff, setting up the whole affair. Erin's vodka tonic sat untouched on the table between us. Her hands were shaking slightly. You can't prove any of that. Can't I? Because I've been recording our conversation, Erin. Amazing what phones can do these days. I held up my device, showing the voice memo app running. You just admitted to having evidence of my alleged stalking, which means you've been watching me, following me, conspiring to blackmail me. That's a felony. You bastard. But wait, there's more. See, I also recorded some very interesting conversations between you and Bernice. Amazing how thin the walls are in your apartment. Did you know sound carries through heating vents? I was bluffing, mostly, but Erin's reaction told me I was on the right track. What conversations? The ones where you coached her on what to say to divorce lawyers? The ones where you helped her hide assets in your name? The ones where you admitted this whole thing was payback for what happened 15 years ago? Erin stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. You're lying. Maybe, but are you willing to bet your freedom on it? Because if I'm right, you're looking at conspiracy charges, fraud, maybe even extortion. How many years you think that's worth? She stared at me for a long moment, then sat back down. When she spoke, her voice was barely audible. What do you want? The truth. All of it. She looked around the tavern, making sure no one was listening, then leaned across the table. It wasn't supposed to go this far, she whispered. I just wanted you to hurt the way you hurt me. You destroyed my career, my reputation. I couldn't get a decent job for 2 years because of you. So you decided to destroy my marriage? I thought maybe if Bernice was just a little unhappy, if she started questioning things, you'd realize what you had and fight for it. I never meant for her to actually have an affair. But when she did, you encouraged it. She was miserable, Jean. Really miserable. You worked all the time, never paid attention to her, treated her like a roommate instead of a wife. Jeff made her feel alive again. So you helped her lie to me, helped her sneak around, humiliate me in front of the whole town. Erin's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry. I really am. But it's too late now. She loves him. No, I said, standing up. She loves the idea of him. The excitement, the rebellion, the fantasy of starting over. But Jeff's broke. His business is failing. And when the money runs out, so will the romance. You don't know that. I know Bernice. She's practical above all else, always has been. When she realizes Jeff can't provide the lifestyle she wants, she'll dump him faster than yesterday's newspaper. I dropped a 20 on the table and looked down at Erin, this woman who'd spent 15 years plotting revenge against me. But by then, it'll be too late. Because I'm done being the understanding husband. I'm done being the nice guy who gets walked all over. You wanted to see me hurt? Congratulations. Mission accomplished. But now it's my turn. I walked away, leaving her sitting alone in the booth with her untouched drink and her guilty conscience. Outside, the December air was sharp and clean. I sat in my truck for a moment, processing what I'd learned. Erin had orchestrated this whole thing, manipulated my wife, destroyed my family, all for revenge over a 15-year-old grudge. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated me. I drove home and spent the night planning, not the amateur hour maltreatment I'd been doing, but something bigger, something that would expose the truth to everyone and leave no doubt about who the real villains were. The next morning, I called in sick to work and drove to Jeff's gym. His Jeep was in the parking lot, and through the windows, I could see him training a client, some soccer mom who was probably paying him extra for personal attention. I walked in like I owned the place. Well, Jeff said, stopping mid-rep. Look what the cat dragged in. We need to talk, coach. I don't think we do. He set down his weights and stepped closer, trying to intimidate me with his size. In fact, I think you need to leave before I call the cops. About what? I'm a potential customer looking to join a gym. Bees, you're here to cause trouble? Actually, I'm here to make you an offer. That got his attention. The soccer mom he'd been training looked between us nervously, sensing the tension. What kind of offer? The kind where you walk away from my wife and leave town and... I don't destroy what's left of your pathetic business. Jeff laughed, but it sounded forced. You already tried that, buddy. Didn't work. That was just the warm-up. You want to see what real damage looks like? I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo. Jeff coming out of Dr. Morrison's office downtown. The same Dr. Morrison who was known for prescribing steroids to athletes with hormone deficiencies. Interesting medical visits you've been making, Coach. I wonder what the State Athletic Commission would think about a gym owner who's juicing and possibly selling to clients. His face went white. You son of a witch. Or maybe they'd be more interested in your financial situation. Did you know it's fraud to operate a business while hiding assets from creditors? Because I found those offshore accounts, Jeff. The ones where you've been stashing cash to avoid paying taxes. I was bluffing about the offshore accounts, but the steroid thing was real. I'd followed him to 3 different doctors over the past week, building a pattern of suspicious behavior. What do you want? He asked. I want you gone. Out of town, out of Bernice's life, out of my face. Do that, and your secrets stay secret. And if I don't, then tomorrow morning, every gym owner, personal trainer, and fitness influencer in a 50-mile radius gets an anonymous email about your pharmaceutical habits. The state gets a tip about tax evasion. Your landlord gets photos of you injecting in the bathroom. Your life becomes a living heck. Jeff stared at me for a long moment, then looked around his gym. His pride and joy, his meal ticket, his identity. You're bluffing. Try me. We locked eyes, 2 men who'd reached the end of their rope. Finally, Jeff looked away. I need time. You have until Sunday. After that, all bets are off. I walked out of the gym feeling like I'd won the lottery, but the best part was still to come. That evening, I got a call from Lila. Dad, something's wrong with Mom. She's been crying all day, won't tell me what happened. What did you do? I told her friend Erin the truth about a few things. Maybe Erin shared some of that truth with your mother. What truth? Ask your mother. Better yet, ask Erin. I think you'll find their answers very interesting. Dad, please, whatever's happening, can't we just what, Lila? Pretend none of this happened, go back to being the nice guy who gets crap on by his own family? That's not. It is exactly that. You chose sides, sweetheart. You chose to humiliate me online, to encourage your mother's affair, to treat me like garbage. Now you get to live with those choices. I hung up and turned off my phone. Tomorrow would bring the final act of this little drama, and I wanted to savor the anticipation. Everything was falling into place perfectly. Sunday morning arrived gray and cold, with the kind of bitter wind that cut through your coat and reminded you that winter in upstate New York was not for the weak. I sat in my kitchen drinking coffee and watching the clock, waiting for the pieces of my plan to fall into place. At 9 a.m., my phone rang. Jeff's number. We need to talk. His voice was tight, desperate. Nothing to talk about, Coach. Sunday's here. Time to make your choice. Look, I can't just disappear. I have a lease, employees, clients who depend on me. Should have thought about that before you started screwing married women. Gene, please, be reasonable. What if Bernice and I cooled things off? Took a break? I laughed. A break? Like a timeout? This isn't middle school, Jeff. You destroyed my marriage. Now I'm destroying your life. Seems fair. You don't understand. I love her. No, you love the idea of her. The forbidden fruit, the conquest, the ego boost of stealing another man's wife. But love? Real love means sacrifice, commitment, putting someone else's needs before your own. When's the last time you did that? Silence on the other end. That's what I thought, I said. You've got 2 hours to make your decision. After that, the emails start going out. I hung up and immediately called Mick at the gym. It's time, I said. You sure about this, Gene? Once you pull this trigger, there's no going back. I'm sure. All right, then. I'll make the calls. Mick had connections throughout the local boxing and fitness community. Trainers, gym owners, athletic commissioners, people who took steroid use violations seriously. One word from him, backed up by my evidence, would end Jeff's career permanently. But that was just the appetizer. At 11 a.m., I drove to Erin's apartment complex. Bernice's Honda was in the parking lot, along with Lila's little Toyota. Perfect. The whole family was together. I parked across the street and sent a group text to all 3 of their numbers. Family meeting, Lakeside Cabin, 1 hour. Come alone or don't come at all, but this ends today. The Lakeside Cabin had been my mother's place, a modest 2-bedroom on the shore of Saratoga Lake that I'd inherited 5 years ago. Bernice had always hated it, Too rustic, too isolated, too much like the working-class life she'd tried to escape. But it was private, with no neighbors to witness whatever was about to happen. I arrived first and spent 20 minutes setting up. Chairs arranged in a circle, my laptop connected to the cabin's Wi-Fi, my phone ready to live stream to Facebook. If this was going to be the end of my marriage, the whole town was going to watch it happen. Bernice arrived first, looking haggard and nervous. She'd lost weight over the past few weeks, and her usually perfect hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. Behind her came Lila, then Aaron, all three of them clustering together like they were facing a firing squad. "Jean, what is this about?" Bernice asked. "Sit down, all of you." They reluctantly took seats, Aaron and Bernice flanking Lila like bodyguards protecting a witness. "For 25 years, I began. I thought I had a marriage. Not a perfect one, but a real one. Built on trust, commitment, shared goals. Turns out I was wrong. Jean, I'm not finished." I held up my hand. "For 25 years, I worked 60-hour weeks to provide for this family. I sacrificed my health, my hobbies, my friendships, everything because I thought we were a team. Turns out I was wrong about that, too." I looked at each of them in turn. My wife, my daughter, my wife's puppet master. What I had was a business arrangement. I was the ATM, the meal ticket, the reliable schmuck who paid the bills while you all lived your real lives somewhere else. "That's not true," Bernice said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Isn't it? When's the last time you asked about my day, Bernice? When's the last time you showed any interest in my thoughts, my feelings, my dreams? When's the last time you treated me like a husband instead of a roommate?" She opened her mouth to answer, then closed it again. "And you," I turned to Lila. "When's the last time you called just to say hi? When's the last time you showed any appreciation for the sacrifices I made to pay for your education, your car, your lifestyle? Dad, You posted a video calling me toxic. 12,000 views and climbing. My own daughter telling the world what a failure I am as a man." Tears started rolling down Lila's cheeks, but I wasn't done. "And you," I looked at Aaron. "You orchestrated this whole thing, didn't you? 15 years of planning. 15 years of waiting for the perfect moment to destroy my life because I fired you for stealing. Jean, please what? Please forgive you. Please understand. Please be the nice guy who gets walked all over one more time." I stood up and walked to my laptop, opening the Facebook live stream. Within seconds, viewers started joining. Mrs. O'Hara, Tommy from work, people from around town who'd been following the drama. "What are you doing?" Bernice asked. "I'm telling the truth, all of it, to everyone." I turned the laptop so the camera could see all four of us, then began speaking directly to the audience. "Hi, everyone. Jean Braun here. I know a lot of you have been talking about my family situation, so I thought I'd clear the air." The viewer count was climbing rapidly. 50, 100, 200 people watching live. "My wife, Bernice, has been having an affair with Jeff Maloney, owner of CrossFit Revolution. They've been meeting at local motels using our joint credit cards to pay for their romantic getaways." "Jean, stop!" Bernice lunged for the laptop, but I blocked her. "My daughter Lila has been encouraging this affair, telling her mother she deserves better than her toxic father. She's also been posting videos about our family problems to boost her social media following." "Dad, please don't do this," Lila sobbed. "And Aaron Walsh, my wife's best friend, has been orchestrating the whole thing as a revenge for being fired from my company 15 years ago for theft." The comment section was exploding. Hundreds of messages, reactions, shares. The whole town was watching our family implode in real time. "But here's the part you don't know," I continued. "Jeff's gym is bankrupt. He's been using steroids and possibly dealing them to clients. He's facing multiple investigations and will likely be out of business within a month." I pulled out printed copies of Jeff's financial records, his medical visits, his legal troubles. "Bernice has been funding his failing business with money from our joint accounts, nearly $30,000 over the past 6 months. Money that was supposed to go toward our retirement, our daughter's education, our future." Bernice was crying now, her perfect facade finally cracking. "And the best part? None of them actually love each other. This whole thing is built on lies, manipulation, and revenge. Jeff's using Bernice for her money. Bernice is using Jeff to feel young again. Aaron is using both of them to get back at me, and Lila's using all of us for social media content." The viewer count had passed 500. The comments were a mix of shock, anger, and morbid fascination. "So, Here's what's going to happen, I said, looking directly into the camera. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow. I'm keeping the house, the cabin, and my pension. Bernice can have whatever debts she's racked up supporting her boyfriend's failed business. Jean, you can't. I'm also cutting off financial support for Lila. She's 23 years old and thinks I'm toxic. Time for her to figure out life without daddy's money. This is insane. Aaron finally spoke up. You're having a breakdown. Am I? Or am I finally standing up for myself after 25 years of being taken for granted? I turned back to the camera. The moral of the story, folks, is this. If you're going to betray someone, make sure they don't have access to your financial records, your text messages, and your deepest secrets. Because when nice guys finally stop being nice, they can be absolutely ruthless. I reached for the laptop to end the stream, but Bernice grabbed my arm. Please, Jean, turn it off. We can work this out. We can go to counseling, start over. Start over? I laughed. With what? Trust, respect, love? You threw all that away for a few months of excitement with a broke gym owner? I made a mistake. You made a choice. Multiple choices over months and months, every lie, every secret meeting, every time you came home smelling like another man. Those were choices. I looked at the laptop screen. The viewer count was approaching 1,000, and the comments were still pouring in. Some people were defending me, others were calling me cruel. But everyone was watching. This is what accountability looks like, I said to the camera. This is what happens when actions have consequences. Take notes. I closed the laptop, ending the stream, and turned to face my family one last time. Jeff will be leaving town within the week. I've made sure of that. His gym is finished, his reputation is destroyed, and his legal troubles are just beginning. Bernice, you're welcome to follow him wherever he goes, but you'll be doing it without my money. What about us? Lila asked through her tears. What about our family? What family? The one where you called me toxic on social media? The one where your mother cheated on me for months? The one where your mother's best friend spent 15 years plotting revenge against me? I walked to the cabin door and opened it. This family died months ago. I'm just making it official. They filed out slowly. Aaron first, then Lila, finally Bernice. My wife of 25 years stopped in the doorway and looked back at me. I did love you, Jean. Once upon a time. I know, I said, but once upon a time isn't enough anymore. After they left, I sat alone in the cabin, listening to the wind off the lake and the silence of my phone. No calls, no texts, no demands on my time or attention. For the first time in months, I felt truly at peace. Outside, snow was beginning to fall, covering the lake and the trees in a blanket of white. It looked clean, pure, like a fresh start. I opened my laptop and checked the Facebook video. It had been shared over 200 times and had nearly 3,000 views. The comments were still coming in, a mix of support, criticism, and shock. Some people thought I was a hero for standing up to my cheating wife. Others thought I was a monster for humiliating my family in public. I didn't care what they thought. For the first time in 25 years, I'd told the complete truth about my life, and it felt incredible. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You destroyed everything. I hope you're happy. I typed back. I didn't destroy anything. I just stopped pretending it wasn't already broken. Then I blocked her number and turned off my phone. Outside, the snow continued to fall, and the lake grew quiet and still. I sat in my mother's old cabin, surrounded by the silence I'd earned through months of careful planning and ruthless execution, and smiled. They'd wanted a villain. I'd shown them heck. And for the first time in years, I was exactly where I wanted to be.